What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Testimony Table podcast.
The podcast where it's real stories, real struggles, and real miracles. How everyday people share how Jesus has changed their lives forever.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Brandon, and we're both your hosts, and we're seriously glad you're here today.
This show is all about giving God the glory, telling the truth, and bringing hope to people who need it most.
In our show, we can lean heavy into a theme of recovery because Jesus doesn't just forgive,
He restores,
He heals.
He delivers,
He can pull you out of anything: addiction, depression, anxiety, brokenness, shame.
He can turn your mess into a message and your pain into purpose.
We believe Jesus is still moving today, and testimonies still have power.
And we are here to fulfill the mission He gave us, the Great Commission, to go, to tell, and to make disciples.
So pull up a seat
Lean in,
and get ready.
because your faith is about to become stronger than you ever thought possible.
All right, let's get into it.
Rolling.
Bunch of amateurs. They're a bunch of amateurs.
All right.
All right, man.
Testimony Table, Episode 1.
Yeah, episode 1, man.
Here we are.
Excited.
I know, man. It's pretty cool.
Can I open in prayer?
Absolutely.
Heavenly Father, we thank you so much that you are allowing us to have this platform to bring glory to your name, Lord. I pray that you bless our time and that you use this podcast to reach people and to further your kingdom, Lord. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. That was beautiful.
Well, thank you.
Cannot wait to get things rolling, get it started. And I guess I get to be the lucky first go at it. So,
Well, I mean, you've had this this studio waiting to be used, man. I think you've earned it. I think you should get the first
well,
go at it.
we're gonna tackle it. I guess the best I can say is I'm gonna try my best to fit this crazy story, this path to righteousness, into it may be a two-parter, man. I don't know. I have this way about me that ends up completely being full of details, maybe some unnecessary details. So I'm going to try to keep that to a minimum, but keep the important stuff in because.
Well, whatever it takes, man. You know, we just want your testimony to be heard and, be able to share how God's changed your life, and, it's powerful. And, I don't know how many years we've known each other now, but 20?
We're coming on 20. If we ain't at 20 yet, we're getting real close to it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man. So you know, and we're there for part of it.
Yeah, and then we were apart for some years too.
Yeah. Well, I went kind of way down. Do you hear that?
Yeah.
What is that? Are you kidding me? That was very distracting.
Yeah, it started when do you still hear the buzz?
Can you hear it?
Yeah. What is that? What is that?
I'm going to be honest with you. I believe it's a magnet off the clappy.
Oh, dude, that's wild.
It's exactly what it is. And it stuck to the headphone jack and caused that feedback. What are the odds of that? Episode 1. Come on. And maybe just for the sake of it, I'm just going to leave that all in there because that's kind of... At least it was an easy fix. At least it wasn't something we had to dissect the computer to figure out or the interface to figure out. So,
yeah. It's a process, man.
I feel compelled to leave it. I'm still getting some.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna figure that out. Don't hear it now.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah, we'll start. We're not gonna leave all this in. When I take that off, does that go away completely for you? Do you hear anything? You can still hear feedback? I don't hear it right now.
I don't hear it.
What a weird thing to have happen. I don't hear it now. You hearing it at all?
No.
I mean, pretty quiet on the sound waves. All right. So.
All right. Well, can I open in prayer?
Yeah, absolutely.
Heavenly Father, thank you so much for Matt. Thank you for this platform, Lord. And I pray that you use Matt and I to further your kingdom, Lord. Use our testimonies to bring people closer to you and to save souls, Lord. We love you and thank you for everything. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Episode 1.
Here we are. And I get to be out of the gate. And I feel happy. And I feel hopeful that it reaches the right ears and the right people understand what the cause is and what we're doing. And I think it's very important. It's taken me years. You know, my path to Christ was made through hardships, addiction, and recovery.
Yeah.
And I feel very blessed to have the life that I have now with the family, my wife, my son. And there was a point in my life that I really had given up hope that this type of life that I'm leading now would have even been possible. So for those reasons, I just feel so blessed, man. I feel so happy.
Where were you going to start as far as your testimony? Because I know you got lots of stories.
Man, you know, I think I'll just start, you know, I'll start, you know, let's say I'll start 1 month before my recovery became possible. And I think that was the moment that God started trying to reach me. And my heart and my mind wasn't open to understand it until hindsight.
Yeah.
But I believe looking back, those were the moments that he was reaching out to me saying, hey, he heard me sit in the mirror in those nights and just give up hope on myself, saying, man, you've taken this way beyond partying, way beyond having fun, being young and dumb. You know, you are 28 years old and you're a junkie, and you're just going to have to come to grips with that. And I think he heard those conversations that I was having with myself on those lonely nights, and he started trying to reach me. And, you know, growing up, I always heard, you know, just not daily or anything, but I heard, you know, people, they would say, oh, yeah, you know, God will come and he'll talk to you. And I always, in my mind, I always wondered, I'm like, what does that mean? Does it mean God's talking to somebody? There's this like gigantic voice that comes into your head that is the Almighty that tells you. So I never really had an understanding of what that even meant.
There's a Bible verse that comes to mind when you talk about that. I just want to share it real quick. It's in the book of John, chapter 6, verse 44. It says, "No one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws them, and I will raise them up in the last day." And I think that's a powerful verse.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, it was happening. And as it was happening, it wasn't at the forefront of my mind because it was through tragedy. It was through loss. It was through hardships of my own personal abilities to take care of myself, losing my job, losing my vehicle, losing my home. These are all things that were just piling on me.
And I wonder how many times you were close to possibly losing your life, because I know that's a serious possibility.
It had to have been. And, I'm not blind to that, looking back and trying to understand everything that happened, how it happened and why it happened. But, so I'll just jump into it, man. So we're approximately 1 month before, my life changed for the better forever. So I'm working a job. I'm very much trapped in addiction, the heroin addict,
Yeah.
deep state heroin addict, shooting up every day to feed the beast, to be able to even function myself in life. And went on lunch break from a job and I took off. I talked to a friend and they're like, "Hey, if you can find anything, then I'll get you some too," which is common. Anyone that's listening that has ever been around that type of lifestyle understand what that is, especially from our little area. But the ones that don't, I mean, that's just what it is. You're chasing that.
Yeah, I mean, I can relate, but only with alcohol. But that'll be a later testimony. But yeah, I can somewhat relate.
It was just, it's like, okay, I'm not supposed to leave for my lunch, but I have this opportunity to fix this little itch that I got. So off I go. I go and I score and I.
Oh, you weren't even supposed to leave for lunch?
No.
Oh.
No, I mean, I was allowed to have a lunch, but we weren't supposed to leave the property for it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I ran off, I went and scored, met the person at my house, which was close by. So doing the math, I'm like, I think I can pull this off,
Yeah.
So, and so we meet and we get high and this person's like, "Hey, can you do that for me?" And meaning, can I shoot them up, And I'm like, yeah, just let me do mine first. So I do it, immediately realize this stuff is different than stuff I had done before because I literally, within seconds, was like nodding out. I remember shaking me like, "Hey, are you going to do this for me?" I'm like, yeah. Give me a minute. And I was just trying to let that initial go by me. And
that's wild.
Yeah, man. So I feel, looking back, again, this is hindsight views, that was probably one of the only times that I ever had gotten fentanyl and not realized it, because I had done the stuff every day for a period of time and never had it ever affected me that way. So I don't know that to be true, but I'm guessing.
Likely. Yeah.
Because shortly after is when the fentanyl just started swamping our area. So I finally muster up enough consciousness and I do this for this person. And I nod back out, and I'm out, and then I wake up and it felt like I had slept overnight or something. I'm literally leaning on the edge of my couch and I look at my watch and I'm like, I have to get back to work. What is going on here? So I stand up and I go get my stuff together. I'm telling the person, I'm like, "Hey, we gotta, you gotta go because I gotta go. I gotta go back to work, get my stuff." I come out and they're unconscious and they're blue.
Oh my gosh.
And this is the first time, even though I'd been around it, this is the first time that And this is someone I cared about, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, you know, end up getting them on the floor, performing CPR. Now, keeping in mind, I'm a junkie from a small town. My training in CPR comes from a good friend of mine that had went to fire academy. And I remember him telling stories of doing CPR because he was also a paramedic. Just his stories and what I had seen on TV, and that was
now. Did that like snap you into sobriety real quick, or you just still like?
No. There was pure adrenaline and fear. The struggling to stay conscious was no longer there. I think just whatever your body does in that situation,
The fight or flight
just
response.
destroyed whatever the drugs were doing, or, you know, it had passed enough. I mean, in reality, that, you know, when I came to and I said it felt like I'd slept overnight, it had probably been about less than 10 minutes. You know what I mean? So I get her to get the person down and start doing CPR to the best of what I've seen on TV and what I imagined my buddy's stories were, you know? Yeah. And they just weren't responding to it. It's like I'm blowing into their mouth, you know, giving the compressions on the chest, freaking out, man. I don't know what's going on. And every time I'd breathe in, the air would just come back out. It's like, this isn't working. This isn't at all. And I'd never seen anybody, you know, blue like that. And it's a nauseating experience, and it's more so for the fact that I had done that to them.
Oh yeah.
I had got it. I had literally was the one that put it into them. And now I'm the one sitting here watching them die in front of me, and I'm doing the only thing I know how to do, which is nothing, but I'm giving. And you know, the one story was, you know, we broke this woman's sternum because we had to give chest compressions so hard. So the only thing I thought to do was push harder, and that's what I started doing, and you know, felt like an hour, you know, and within a little bit, I seen one little eyelid flutter. And I'm like, okay, something's happening. And I just, as hard as I could again, like basically trying to break their sternum if that's what it took to get the heart going again, I guess. I don't know how to explain it, but I seen that signs of life, and that gave me hope. So I put my mouth on theirs to breathe for them again. And in that exact moment, they regained consciousness.
Now, was it like a huge breath? Sorry, I just
no. It was literally the eyes shot open. I mean, I'm like face to face because I'm literally holding the nose and the chin, and I'm about to put my mouth on theirs to breathe, and the eyes and I see it happen as I'm coming down to breathe for them, and then you know, I catch a right hook in the mouth, and what are you doing? Yeah. And I just collapsed. I didn't care.
Yeah,
it was just
you were relieved.
They're back, because I really thought this isn't working, and then it was like, and I said, you were just blue as the sky, not breathing, and I thought you were gone. And then they like grabbed their head and was kind of like, oh, like said they had this horrible headache, which was probably due to the lack of oxygen for the time.
Yeah.
And we got up off my living room floor, and they went and got in their car and headed out. And I went and got in my car, and I went back to work. And
crazy, man.
It's hard to explain what the feeling was in that 5-minute drive back to the shop, and then to walk into a door and go back as if
like everything's
nothing just happened, that I wasn't just this close to losing someone that I cared about, or this close to losing my life for what I had done to that person. But the addict in you, you know, you just compartmentalize it, push it aside, because I didn't get sober that day, as I probably should have. But I believe that experience there was God's first little pebble he tossed at my forehead to say, hey, dude, it's time to wake up.
Yeah.
This isn't the life that you were raised to be in. This isn't your mission on earth, to be a piece of crap junkie that's just destroying yourself and bringing other people along with you. But I didn't recognize it as that in that moment.
It's wild, like you were saying, in hindsight, because I've had experiences where I should have snapped out of my alcoholism at that moment, but I didn't. So I understand. It's you can only understand it if you've lived it.
That's true. And I think it's important for people, anyone that talks to people that his family's been affected by addiction, because there's a lot of misinformation. And what I mean when I say that is there's a lot of people, addiction is a choice. And I agree with that to an extent, but there are many good people that have made bad choices that's led to a unbreakable addiction. Not unbreakable. I believe anything is possible, especially if you open your heart to Christ and you take them messages that he's sending you.
Amen.
But it's a lot harder. People that's never dealt with it, just stop doing it. You see what it does, just stop.
Yeah.
And I believe that I've met people in my experience that would, in a single second, I was one of them. I didn't know how I was ever going to function in life, because if I did not have that drug, I was physically handicapped by it. And I don't know that everyone understands how crippling that was. My mom found out because she, again, this is part of the story that we'll get into, but she seen and couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
How crippling it was while I sat there and went cold turkey.
And you think, like, I know you and I went through the DARE program probably in elementary school, and you hear about shooting heroin, and you're like, you probably thought, I'm never going to stick a needle in my arm. And Satan just twists people's minds and presents things in their life that, it's a slow process into getting to that. And, I 100% believe marijuana is a gateway drug. But not to interrupt you, I'm just saying, like, no one ever thinks that they're going to get to that point, but Satan somehow.
So in that context, I agree after absorbing it, because I don't hold any ill will towards anyone that chooses to smoke weed. But to say that it's not a gateway drug, especially our generation, you can't say it because it's the first time that you go in and say, there is, I'm going to do this even though I'm not supposed to do it. And you start dabbling in that way. So it's a
stepping stone, though, for sure. And it's a gateway. Nobody can say it's not. That's real and truthful with themselves, I think.
And I agree with it. And for a long time I didn't. I'm like, just because I smoke a joint doesn't mean I want to go shoot up heroin. But guess what? I smoked a joint, and then somewhere along the lines I ended up doing the latter. But it's just so important to me for people to understand that addiction, I don't know that saying it's a disease is a proper way of phrasing it, but it is a real issue, and it's not like you can just turn it off and turn it on. And the people that think that you can have clearly never been there. And even if it hits close to home to them, it's something that they just refuse to understand. Support is the biggest thing I contribute my sobriety to. I mean, God started showing me in little ways leading up to it, but the support of my family and my friends that helped build me up and be like, look, this isn't who you are. You're better than this.
So what was the next pebble or possibly smack in the face?
So, okay, so I go back to work, that day that happened. And things are just normal like they are. More normal now because I'm not going through any type of detox. Actually, even though it was just this crazy moment, it wasn't enough to get me there. It was I spotted trailers, so I had an issue at work. One of the old storage trailers, like the chain had broke on it as I was coming around the building, and when I went to back it into the dock, on my blind side, the door had swung from the chained open to completely facing the building, so I went to back into the dock.
I actually know firsthand because we both worked at the same place.
So
not at the same time, though.
But it, so I felt some resistance. I'm like, I gave it a little bit more. Well, ripped the door off the hinges of the trailer, and I stopped right where I was at. It was wintertime, so the overhead door was down, so the overhead door got a little bit damaged as well. So I stopped, and not really thinking in a million years, because the little chain, the little eyelet that you hook the chain into to hold the semi-trailer door open, it was literally still hanging in the chain. So I clearly had hooked the door open, and the wood was so freaking rotted in the old trailer, that they were using, that just a bump or something, it had pulled out. So anyway, I run in and I let them know. I'm like, hey, you might want, there's some damage. You might want to come get some pictures of this. These trailers are crazy. And they come out and they take pictures, and they're like, well, you're going to have to go take a drug test. I'm like, why am I going to have to go take a drug test? You see that I did everything. I've done hundreds of these since I've been doing this job. You see that it wasn't negligent. Property was damaged, and you got to go. And I'm like, uh-oh, obviously. I'm like, okay. And so check this out. One of the guys in our department had got his tax return and was buying pizza, 10 pizzas for the whole department that day that this happened. So he's like, but we'll wait for the pizza to get here, and we'll eat lunch, and then I'll run you out there. And I'm like, okay, cool. I just gotta go to the bathroom first, and I'll meet you in the room. So I hottail it because I have some synthetic urine at my house, which is only 5 minutes away. So I beat feet. I jump in my truck. I go there. I grab the synthetic urine. I throw it in the microwave. A little too long, I found out. I throw it down. I put on 5 pairs of underwear. I toss it down there, and I run back out to my truck with my 3rd-degree burns. Not literally, but it was hot. Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry.
So I head back to work, and everything goes off without a hitch. He takes me out there. I use it. I pass my drug test, okay? And I keep my job. And I'm telling you, when I said we're going a month before everything, I'm telling you, this is when he decided he needed me to get the message, he started sending me clues in full force. So that particular time, I'm like, wow, I can't believe that just happened. So I pass it. Everything's good. A couple of days later, my boss calls me in, and he goes, hey, did you leave work the other day when I had to take you for a drug test? I'm like, huh? I'm like, no. He's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, man, no. We had pizza. He's like, well, it would have been pretty amazing if you was able to get out of here and go anywhere, because the place sat between railroad track. Exactly.
Yeah.
Its location.
And that was your old house that I had been to.
Correct. That was in between the same set of tracks. So
Yeah.
in order to get to my house, I didn't have to cross railroad tracks. But he's like, yeah, but someone told me they seen you pull out and then come speeding back in. And I'm like, no, it wasn't me. And then I'm like, man. And, you know, just at that point, I can't pretend like a choir boy and say, you know, but you just don't feel good when you're, even in my worst of my addiction, I didn't care as much as a liar and a manipulator that it had made me. It was just, I just had to be one because that's what I needed to do to continue to feed the addiction that I needed. But I always did have a little subconscious in there that was always like, man, that sucked to sit and look that dude, because I liked him. He was a good dude, you know. But so then, you know, it was probably within.
I mean, they could just check the cameras, right?
You would think, but he trusted me. And that was another thing where it was just like he took the word. He asked me about it. I lied to his face. He accepted it, and then we went on from it. Well, couple days later, I don't know, it may have been a week. It's, you know, it's all happening pretty quick. They had someone on nights call off, and they needed someone to load and move trucks. And I ran the yard truck, and I was a material handler, so I was like, I'll stay. You know, ain't no big deal. There was like production, a line had got messed up, so basically there was a truck there that needed to be live loaded straight off the production line, straight onto the truck and heading out. So I was doing that. I'd grab the rack, I'd run it back to the docks, go into the trailer, drop it off, give them a few minutes, shuffle some stuff around, go back. When they'd have the next one full, grab it. So I was doing that. Well, one of the racks, when I came back in, I went over the dock plate into the trailer. Excuse me. And the inspector hadn't closed the rack all the way. So when I hit the dock plate, the rack opened, the rack caught on the top of the trailer, and two of the products came out and hit the ground. And I stopped again. Okay. I'm like, oh man, you know, I back up, go get them to get pictures like they always want whenever there's something that happens. The trailer wasn't damaged. The forklift wasn't damaged. The parts didn't appear to be damaged, but when they hit the floor, you have to pull them out.
Right.
And so they're like, well, you got to go take a drug test. I'm like, what?
Oh, I just did this.
It's like, how he didn't latch it. I'm there. My shift was over. I could have been home, but I volunteered to stay. This happens, and I hold no ill will towards it, but I'm like, and to hear the story, like, kind of expedited, it's like, oh, man, this guy, you know, they knew. But it's hard to explain. It was just one of them places that followed procedure no matter what. You can look at all the obvious stuff and say, it's not your fault, but we're going to do it just to cover ourselves.
Yeah.
So there was no getting around it. That was it. And I told him, I said, I'm not going to go take a drug test for you. They were like, what do you mean? I said, I'm not going to pass a drug test for you. I spun some bullcrap story about why, to make myself feel better about myself and to make them not judge me as hard as they would if I told them the truth. But at the end of the day, I can't pass a drug test for you, so I'm not going to go and leave a paper trail.
So what, you just had to quit?
I quit. And they're like, well, let me call, because they liked me. I'd never called off work. I was there. I was a hard worker.
Yeah.
So they tried a few different things. At the end of the day, HR was like, he either goes or he quits.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, I quit. So boom, stone number 2. You're not getting out of this. You know, you need to change.
Yeah, because you couldn't run home. You didn't have any more synthetic urine.
Correct. You need to change still.
Yeah.
Instead of opening my eyes to the world is pointing me in the direction that I need to go, I feel like I'm being the worst luck and I'm being crapped on and this, that, and the other.
Yeah, right.
So I collect my final check and I go find a place to stay because and this time, I mean, there's just so many details, but so I go and I get high. I go to a house of a friend that was a friend before drugs, but we went into them together, and we were there, and he, we scored. And it was probably the next day, like my mom. And keep in mind, I'm 28, but I had already lost my house. I'd already lost my driver's license and stuff leading up to this time. Like I was able to like ride a bicycle to work, that last week or so that I was there. So I'm missing some details to the story, but the gist is things were starting to crumble. The big impact stuff, watching someone about lose their life, losing my job, and now I'm at this place and I'm just drowning my sorrows in the same thing that I watched about take this other person's life. And so I'm there, and this girl that's just like people in and out of this house, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm upstairs this house. So this girl comes in and is like, "Hey, you're Matt, right?" Yeah. "Your mom's downstairs on the porch, wants to talk to you." I'm like, "What?" I had no idea how she even knew where I was at. I'm like,
mothers just find a way, dude.
I'm like, "What?" So I go downstairs and I walk out on the porch. She's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Mom." She grabs my arm and turns it over and takes a look. And right then I'm like, okay, the cat's coming out of the bag. She puts it back. I said, "Mom, you just shouldn't be here." She's like, "Well, you're my son, What are you doing? What are you doing?" And I just blew her. I'm like, "Mom, you just gotta go." I was embarrassed about what these people in this house thought, while this woman that loved me more than anybody in the world's ever loved me is sitting there. I'm shattering her heart, But I was in that addiction, man, and I was high, and I didn't want to be talking to her. I was embarrassed for myself for being who I was. I was embarrassed that my mommy was there,
Yeah.
trying to save my life, and I just pushed her away. And
isn't that's what so many people do to Jesus? Because there's the parable of the landowner in Matthew, and you can look that up in Matthew, but the landowner is God, and he's always going out and trying to find workers for his kingdom, and so God's always pursuing us, but we're the ones that have to accept him, and people are always pushing him away. And in a way, your mom, God was using her.
I believe that wholeheartedly. Again, once my brain became free of the grips of addiction and I had time to kind of reflect back on the things that had led me to where I was, these things all became clear to me, and God's work all became clear to me. But on that day, I just didn't want to deal with it. I just wanted to be high and not think about anything, which is an absolute terrible thing to say, but it's just the reality of what the addiction was. That's
Now, do you
all
think
my brain wanted.
She knew you were shooting for sure, or just suspected?
Again, I have that information from hindsight, from down the road. At that moment, she looked right at the marks that I had caused myself from using drugs and didn't recognize them as that. And I don't know how she didn't. A mother's love is blind, I think she highly suspected it. I think, my older brother, who was very close to me, was starting to put the pieces together of how I was living my life. And I know this to be true, so I don't know why I just said think, but he, he started bringing it to the table, like, "Hey, I think something's up. I think Matt's in a really dark place. And sometimes when I talk about it, man, it still makes me emotional because the love that
How could it not? I mean,
the love that was given to me and my brother, he's like, man, you know, if someone was bullying me, I know you wouldn't have it. You would come and be ready to punch them in the face, you know. And I was watching that drug bully you, and I hope you're not mad at me. And this was all after. I was like, dude, you saved my life. So no anger at all, only gratitude and thankfulness, you know. But that day, I couldn't believe it because she looked right at it, and I'm like, okay, so the cat's out of the bag.
is this the same? Because, you know, we've shared stories. Is this the same house where
That's yeah.
Where okay.
Yeah. This was a day before. I mean,
Oh,
this was
this
in
was
that
a day before.
this was in that. There was only once I lost
Yeah,
my job, it was like less than a week.
Because you never shared that part of the story
Right.
with me about your mom showing up to the house. So
Yeah. It's
the next part is the day after.
yeah. If not the day, I mean, from the time I lost my job till the time I got sober was less than a week, less than 5 days. So I had taken basically my whole check and I just bought a bunch of drugs and was doing them.
Well, the next thing that happens, I feel like, is a smack in the face from God.
It was the final. It was the final one. So yeah. So the next day, you know, that day plays out, whatever, a few days. We're winding down on the drugs that I have, the money that I have, and a group of guys comes over to the house and we're all hanging out. We got a little bit, you know, and we all do it. And we're standing in this kitchen and everyone's just kind of BSing, you know, talking, whatever. And this guy, he's an older guy, a lot older than me. He's probably in his mid-50s. He's like sitting on this stool next to me. And we're all just talking, and I happen to, like, you know, just look down at him because I'm like standing in the doorway and he's like sitting in a chair next to the doorway. And I just remember seeing like the fat, he was a bigger guy. I just remember seeing like the fat of his neck. And it was blue, like I had seen
Oh gosh,
the first encounter of that. And I'm like,
you recognize
I kind of like nudged. I'm like, hey. And it was just like, it was happening all. This was a big dude. And I like bend around and I look at his face and his face is, his chin's in his chest like that. So I kind of like down here looking up at him. And I'm like, I have no idea who this dude is. Complete stranger to me. I'm like, hey, I don't think he's breathing.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, what? And everyone goes into this like little panic mode, but nobody's doing anything. So I'm like, help me get him onto the floor, you know? So we're like, hey, man, we're like shaking him. And
the other people there, they knew him because they came with him, right?
Correct. So this is, yeah. And you know, I processed that.
So they were his friends. You didn't even know the guy, you said?
Never met. It was the first day I ever met him.
Wow.
So, you know, someone helps me. I mean, when I say a big dude, I mean, this dude was, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say he was only 300 pounds, but he was probably more than that. He was a big dude.
Well, I'm 250, so
yeah.
that gives you.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm giving him the real benefit of the doubt, you know, but get him on the floor. Well, he's so big. Everything's so big. So I just go into, okay, it worked. It worked before. It was a little different, you know.
Now you're in that fight or flight mode. And here's the adrenaline again.
And
right?
I'm like, and I start, and I realize, like, just the anatomy of the body. I'm like, where do I push?
Yeah.
To be, you know, because he's just so wide. So you know, I'm not going to speak ill on the dead. I didn't know him. I never even knew his name, you know. I gave it everything that I had in me, and I was the only one in the room that did that. And
I think that speaks to your character underneath all the bad and the addiction and everything. You know, you still, his own friends that came with him didn't do anything. Some stranger was trying to save his life. So, that's commendable.
I just feel like they just, I don't know. It's a scary situation, and everyone says, well, I would do this or I would do that. And the old expression is, you never know what you would do till you're put in that position.
100%.
So some people have a fight or flight. Some people just have a flight. I think there's been people in our community that has been left and just dropped off places that stories in the news.
Yeah.
Of people that were with people that obviously knew them and somewhat cared about them, but they got scared. They could have got them the help, but they didn't. The way the laws were made up, people were scared of getting in trouble, but human life is human life,
Right.
So I remember when I got up off of that kitchen floor, and
so you had performed CPR on this guy
for what seemed like forever, but it seemed like forever before. It's such a weird thing to try to recollect, because I don't know, time stands still, but it goes 100 miles. I don't know. I worked as hard as I could until I realized it wasn't going to happen. I stood up and I said, hey, you need to call 911, because I don't even think anyone at that time, maybe they had already, I don't know, but I was so depressed, man. So could not believe what was happening. And I'm like, I got to go. That's the only thing I said. I said, I think you need to call 911. I got to go. And the guy that I knew, he's like, all right, man, I'll see you tomorrow. I'll talk to you tomorrow. I said, dude, you're probably not going to see me for a while. I can't live like this, dude. And I walked out the door of that house. And every once in a while, I still live in the same town, Every once in a while, I'll drive down that street and just peek over at it just as a reminder, And not to be dramatic, but that's 100% truth. And I go right back to that day that happened. And I remember I walked out. I had nowhere to go, man. I had nowhere to go. I walked out and I took a right on the sidewalk, and I just started walking. So.
And this is all, so just to recap, just so I understand, you almost lost your job, you used fake urine, passed, then another
Freak accident.
Then another freak accident happens, and you do quit because you knew you wouldn't pass. And then, prior to that, you almost watched somebody die. You saved
someone
their life.
That I cared about.
You literally saved their life.
After taking their life.
And now, is it like a week later this happens
This
again?
is probably a couple weeks. It's probably like...
Within the same month, you just watched...
Within the same month.
And now somebody actually died right in front of your eyes that you tried to save their life.
Correct. And I'd never experienced anything like that. Like, I'd heard other people talk about it, which is just insane. It's like going to funerals of friends that had died of drug overdoses, high on the drugs that they died on. I've been there and done. It's just, addiction is very powerful.
Which you and I know, which is just a horrible thing in this town. More people that I can count on my hands
or feet
that have died of overdoses. And
it's terrible, dude. There's that one post that went around locally of all the people, and it was like, yep. Some that I didn't, but it was like 50 people.
Yeah.
And knew 60% of them, friends with 30 or 40% of them, like truly cared about,
Yeah.
It is a terrible thing. And I'm glad to see those numbers have slowed down. Maybe we've just aged out. Maybe it's still happening, but I think it's gotten better since the peak of it, I think people are opening their eyes to it. I wish more people would. Wish more people would find recovery. Wish young people would understand that older addicts and older people that are in recovery that are speaking the truth.
Right.
And are speaking honestly to try to save your life, and not just trying to lie to you to keep you from having fun.
Right. 100%.
It's a weird thing, but that day that I walked off that porch, I had one person that I called. It was my mom. I had nowhere.
And then that was actually, just because I recall the story, that was the last day that you saw that friend, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, So I call my mom, and I'm like, hey, can I just come sleep in my old bed for a few days? I'll figure something out. And for the sake of where we're posting this, I won't use the exact quote, but you'll know what she said to me and by what I say. But she said, Matthew, you're my son, and I'm not going to turn you away. But you better start doing some real effing soul searching, because I'm not going to sit and watch my son kill himself. And I said, I know, Mom. I love you. Yeah. She's like, well, I'm not home, but you know where the key is. So I hung up, and I remember walking down that road, and every car that passed me, I felt like they was staring at me. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, man, they don't know I just watched a man die on the floor of this house. And it was a long walk, man, but it gave me a lot of time, and I think God was putting all this onto my heart. And I was just absorbing everything that had happened. I started thinking about the 3 weeks, whatever it was prior, that on my living room floor that about resulted in the same thing with someone that I really cared about, someone that I did know very well.
Right.
And then losing my job, you know, my little nephew who was like 10 at the time that let me have a bike he won in a raffle so I could get back and forth to work. Like, I remember later talking to him, like, dude, you know, when you gave me that bike, that's not a normal uncle thing to need. I was in a bad place, dude. I always spoke honest with my niece and nephew because before my son was born, they were all I had, you know, and I wanted to make sure they could learn something from my mistakes, especially that one, because the world was like, man, drugs are just everywhere. And I got home and I laid down because I was still high. I'm like, I need to sleep while I can sleep, because I knew in my heart I was done. I couldn't live like that anymore.
Yeah.
Didn't know how I was going to do it. Didn't know how I was even going to begin to function. But I thought from the day that my mom had came and looked at my arms that she already knew from what she said to me on the phone about doing some soul searching. She already knew, wholeheartedly knew. And so I just laid there. And the next morning, my mom's like, so why don't you come talk to me? Tell me what's going on. I said, Mom, just let me sleep. Please, just let me sleep. I'll tell you everything when I wake up. But just please let me sleep for now while I can.
Yeah.
And she attempted that a couple times, and I was just same response. And then a male voice, hey, man, why don't you get him come talk to us? And I rolled over and looked up, and my brother was standing in the room. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I got up, man, and you know, depression beyond what I had ever felt in my heart before. Embarrassment, because I walked down the stairs, and in this house, you know, like there's halfway down the stairs, it turns into a railing, like a banister, and it overlooks the living room area. And as I came past the solid wall and I could see everyone that I loved was sitting in that room, you know.
Yeah.
Come down, sit in a chair, and I'm like, what do you want to know? And my mom's like, are you doing heroin? And I'm like, yeah. And she just started crying. And I'm like, okay, I didn't know that was going to be a shock to her. I think maybe hearing it from me was the slap in the face to her that she maybe in her heart knew that I was, but she didn't want to believe it. So she, we just talked about it. I mean, it was an intervention. Yeah. There was no counselor there. It was just my family, you know, and come to find out for about 2 weeks, they had been meeting I say behind my back, but I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. Yeah. They were worried because of the TV shows and the stuff that addicts get real defensive and offended.
Yeah.
I was begging for that lifeline in my heart.
It's all right, man. I mean,
I knew I would, but I'm going to try to hold it together just for the sake of getting through it. But, you know, God was working, man.
I mean, dude, it takes strength to be this vulnerable. I just want the listeners to know that, you know, and it is emotional.
Dude, this year, that was August of 2013 that this was all happening. Just full disclosure. This year, I'm 13 years sober.
Wow.
So it's taken a
Amen.
long time.
Congratulations,
Amen,
dude.
Thank you. It's taken a long time to be in a position where I feel like if people hear it, maybe they'll understand, because it's already now like younger guys that meet me and work with me, they're like, have no idea. Like, it's so funny to watch them like try to hide, like they're smoking their vapes behind my back. Like, dude, but it's okay. But if people that have only known sober Matt can be inspired by the fact that I haven't always been sober Matt. I was a really low grade junkie at a point in my life, and it can be turned around.
Amen.
It's very possible, you know. But my family, you know, the way God put that to work was they had been through almost everything that was happening over here with me. My family were gathering saying, what can we do? We need to help him. Is he going to accept the help? What are we going to do? So these two things, like, God's throwing me these little nuggets saying, dude, get yourself together. You got, and in hindsight, he's thinking, I already have this plan in motion. You got to make it till they get it figured out.
Right.
Because if you keep doing this, you may be dead before your family gets the courage to confront you. So the way everything happened, this stranger passing away, pushing me towards my old bedroom because I had nowhere else to go. They were like figuring it out. And then I called my mom, and then I find out, like, as soon as my mom gave me you better start doing some real soul searching because I'm not going to watch you. She hangs up and then picks up the phone and says, hey, he's coming to my house right now to stay the night. We need to meet tomorrow.
Yeah.
There I was on a platter for them to do what they've been planning to do. They didn't have to come find me. I walked right in through the front door and laid down in a bed and waited on the help that God sent me.
That's amazing.
It's hard for me to talk about.
I know,
but I think
you're making me tear up.
I think as far as it goes, you know, in those moments of my deepest sadness and my deepest depression, that I was ignoring God and Jesus going, you know, coming into my heart and trying to show me. And I wish I had someone tapping me on the shoulder. And if this podcast can be a tap on the shoulder to somebody to say, hey, this isn't coincidence. There's not coincidence. When you're in your lowest point, nothing's a coincidence, because you are literally in that moment between life and death. Yeah. Especially when you're doing the things that I was doing, or anything that's detrimental to your body, to your mind, or to your soul. If you're lost in anxiety or depressed, it doesn't have to be addiction related. It can be just life related. There's not coincidences. There are little stones being tossed at your forehead. You just have to recognize it and then open your heart up to it. And the best thing that I ever did,
it's great advice,
was start to understand that and accept it into my life. And it's taken me a long time. I've always been very worried, self-absorbed, and I don't mean that, but I do. I mean, it's true. I always worried about my sobriety, and then it became like, I'm not really worried about whether I'm going to stay sober or not. I just really don't want to be around it. And I've made it clear to the people in my life.
Now, so you stayed after the intervention, you stayed at your mom's house. Yeah. You got sober there?
Yeah. Yep. 2 weeks of cold turkey that just about took my life, you know, seriously. And I don't mean there was any like close calls or anything, but my mind of lack of sleep, I could not sleep. The physical withdrawals were, my mom, and I'm not ashamed to say it because she's bless her heart, I would lay on the floor, like with my feet going up the wall because my back just felt like it was in tangles. And she would lay there on the floor in the middle of the night with me because she knew I wasn't asleep. She had a job, you know, and she'd lay on the floor and like rub my back. I'm her grown son that's 28 years old, that's going through the worst thing I ever experienced in my life. But I tell you what, she kept telling me she's like, you're going to get through it.
What an amazing mother, man. That's such a blessing.
Man, you know, and I've brought it up to her to come on here and talk about her angle of it, because it may differ some from mine, but the cores are going to be the same. And just so other mothers that might be worried can understand.
If you don't mind me asking, like, can you explain what the withdrawals feel like? Like, what is that like?
It feels like the worst flu. The closest thing that I can compare it to is your body. You ever heard someone say like restless leg syndrome, where you're just like, you just cannot get comfortable no matter what you do?
Yeah.
So it's like that, but through your whole body.
Like body aches?
Body aches, vomiting, just can't. The worst part for me, I could have handled having to be sick a bunch.
So crazy. And the only thing that would make you better is
the thing that would kill me.
Yeah.
That I watched kill somebody.
And if that doesn't tell you how
evil,
evil heroin is, I mean, it's crazy.
I've made the comment before, and this was before a journey towards Christ even, that I felt like heroin is the true product of the devil, because there's really, I mean, a lot of substances, can drag you down. It really can. But when I watch people, like, heroin was the one that affected me. But I was raised well. My brother and my sister, my mom and my dad are good people.
Yeah.
They, your standard, growing up stuff, but never junkies, not even close, and here the little brother is, the young one, that's just destroyed my life, and the family that never, ever said, well, forget him. Right. He's a lost cause. My dad drove a truck. They didn't leave me by myself ever in that 2-week period. And I say 2 weeks because I did go into Suboxone treatment because my mental health was deteriorating, and there was no signs of when I was ever going to be able to fall asleep. And it was, I mean, the thoughts of suicide had crossed my mind just because I was so desperate for sleep.
Yeah.
Probably made 10 times worse by the fact I was going through serious withdrawal and sleep deprivation. You put those two things together, I don't think that I ever felt suicidal like I did in those moments, because I was so, my brain just didn't even operate. It was like the sun would come up and then the sun would go down, and then the sun would come up and then the sun would go down. And I was in this constant state of unrest, pain, embarrassment, because I just vomit and I would diarrhea, like.
But in hindsight, is there a part of you that's thankful for the pain that you had to go through, just because?
Absolutely.
And
it's so funny that you say that, because in talking to a couple people close to me that I've helped try to guide into sobriety, and they've been successful, and God bless them for finding their way out too. I've said to them, take the pain, because it's going to be what builds a bank in your heart of hatred towards this terrible drug.
Yeah. If
you just go into this ease of, oh, I can take this pill and not feel any of that. And I was in a Suboxone treatment, and it lasted longer than the doctor ever said it was. That's a whole other story. But I took myself off of it when the time was right. I got myself to a little bit of normalcy. I got myself some good rest. you know, and I'm not saying that this was months, because I think Suboxone is a great thing to have available, but I do think you need to feel what it's like without it enough to appreciate what it does for you, and to understand that if you abuse it, it's going to become the same thing that heroin was to you. But if used as a tool, a stepping stone into sobriety, I hate seeing people dog Suboxone, especially if someone's on it for a year. Guess what?
But
you have to bring yourself back to normalcy before you can even understand. Your brain is no longer the same as it was before you were an addict. Your dopamine is no longer produced like a normal human's. Your feel-good receptors are trashed, and you can still, for months and months, feel residual effects from withdrawal. Even if the worst of it's over, and you are never the same again. And if you can have a stepping stone to guide you into understanding when it's time for the Suboxone to go away, that you have a little bit of that again.
It's just, it's a shame that people misuse a tool that's used to get people completely sober, and
it's giving it a black eye.
Yeah.
It's given the whole name. When someone hears Suboxone, like, oh yeah, just one drug for another.
Right.
And there's truth to that if you abuse it.
Yeah.
You know, but if used well, I credit my complete sobriety and the longevity to my sobriety to a Suboxone treatment. The doctor was not having any plans on pulling me off, which irritated me, because when we sat in his office, because my mom's like, you don't need it. Those nights that she stayed up, you're going to get past it. But I think at the end of the 2 weeks and seeing how much my mental health was deteriorating, she was like, okay, maybe we need to. She had called my stepmom, who worked for a doctor, to get his advice. My dad would come pick me up. He was a truck driver. He'd come pick me up and put me in the back of his sleeper with a bucket, and we'd drive. So I wasn't alone. And maybe at some point I'll share it. And I thought about getting it and bringing it down and sharing it on this one, but I think I don't think I'm ready for that. Like, my wife, at my 10-year sobriety, had reached out to all my friends, like, before drugs, during drugs, after drugs, my family, and they all wrote like personal messages to me, and they're pretty
deep.
They're pretty amazing to know what people was thinking. Like, even the ones that, like, we had to back away, dude. You were off the rails, and I was. I ain't mad at them for that.
Right.
That's it's just deep. My family's, you know, my friends far and near, you know, it meant a lot to me, and it meant a lot to me that my wife even thought to do something like that on my 10-year, like, because that was like the, you know, the 1 week.
It's a precious gift that you'll always have, and
it's locked into my fireproof safe with every other important documents that I have, and I'll always cherish it. And sometimes I look back, and every time I look back, man, ball of emotion runs down me, because it's like, my dad's a hardcore dude, man. He's the real deal, and his vulnerability in what he wrote to me
chokes you up
big time. Yeah, he's like, man, I just love you, and I just watched you back there, and I honestly didn't know how you was ever going to get past what condition I seen you in, but you did, and now you got your son, and now you're living this productive life.
Yeah, so beautiful, man.
God is the glory, man.
Amen. So at this point in your testimony, you're downhill. You're almost, or uphill, however you want to. You're heading up the hill, getting out of the valley, if you want to say it that way. What was the next thing that kind of, because God's working in your life, obviously.
So, you know, I think a real misperception in recovery is, once the addict kind of gets the monkey off of their back, they're like, okay, let's just have life now. It's like, but you just spent years
destroying your life.
It don't get to just go
snap back
into now you're just your normal everyday run of the mill person. I had terrible debt that I owed. I had legal stuff that I needed to get taken care of. I didn't have a driver's license. So after settling in for about a month, it was time to start like putting the pieces back together. First things first was I need to get my driver's license, because without a vehicle, without a driver's license, I can't find another job and start being productive.
Can't really function in this world without.
So that was the first thing. So I had saved up. All right, let me just check that. My family helped me a lot. I mean, to say I saved up, that's a silly statement. I shouldn't have said that.
Okay.
Because what was I saving? You know, I was gifted the money to get my license back. So I had a friend run me down to the reinstatement office in Columbus. I wasn't working, so I had all the time in the world. So we drove down real early before they ever even opened. I was the first person that got out of my car. I seen other cars pulling in, so I got out and I literally went up and stood at the door until they came over and unlocked it and opened it. So I was like literally the first person that day that had walked into the reinstatement office, which is in Columbus, Ohio. You know, for those that might not know where we are, I go up, I put my name in, I go have a seat. If you've ever dealt with and I'm sure it's that way across the country, but I know my experience in Ohio. It's crazy. BMVs just are a bummer, man.
It reminds me of Zootopia. I always think of the sloths.
Yeah, that's a great depiction of
comic relief there.
But so I go have my seat, and you know all the other people are coming through. They're coming in, checking in, coming having a seat. All of a sudden, the windows start opening up, and they start calling names. This name, and that name, and that name. I'm like, what is going on here? I was the first person to walk through the door today. What is going on? Because everybody's last place they want to be is in the BMV or reinstatement office or whatever, you know, dealing with it. So I'm like, I let a few names get called, and I'm like, man, I got to go see what's going on. So I walk up to the lady, and I'm like, hey, you know, I was the very first person in the door. Like 7 people's been called up, and I haven't been, what's going on? She's like, oh, what's the name? So I tell her, and I watch her look at her screen, and I don't know what it was, but she's like, oh, they're just processing some stuff through. You're going to be when the next one's called up. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I walk away from the table, and I'm like, something's off here. Something is not
you could
right.
Just read it.
Like I can't even explain it. It wasn't like her eyes like got real bulbous or anything. It was just something in her. When she typed in my name, I'm like, something. I turned around and I'm like, I'm out of here, man. Forget this. Something is not right. And I headed towards the door. And I went through the first set of doors into like, you know, in the middle of like, you know how it is at places. Yeah. And I just, something just came over me in that moment. And I'm like, what are you doing, man? What are you running from? This is it. This is the rest of your life. Were you just going to keep running?
No, it was the voice of God, I believe.
I'm telling you, and I know we've spoke on it, but, you know. So I'm like, I have this little internal conversation with myself. I'm like, well, you going to keep running? It's just going to keep following you. Go back and sit down. Whatever it is.
And that reminds me of another verse. I just had a couple of these verses ready to go. John 10:27 says, my sheep listen to my voice. I know them, and they follow me. So, you know, in that moment, you wanted to flee. Everything in you told you something's not right, and you wanted to get out of that. But
old habits die hard, I suppose.
God's voice, you know, whether it, you know, it spoke to you in your own voice, the voice in your head, but, you know, God gave that to you.
That's at the beginning when I was saying, remembering people saying that God spoke to him and not really understanding what that all meant and how that process would happen if God would ever speak to me. And in that moment, you know, it was just I wasn't like, oh God, you're here. You know, it was just like this little voice inside my head's like, dude, you got to go back, or it's just going to keep following you. So I took my hands off the exit door, turned around, and walked back through. Went right back over to the seat that I had been sitting in all morning since I got there, and I sat down. And I'm like, because it's scary. You know, you don't know what's going on. I knew something was going on. The thought of going to jail was a real bummer, you know, but it was going to be what it was. And I promise you, I sat down. It wasn't one full minute after my butt hit that seat that I heard a door behind me open up, and I kind of peeked over my shoulder.
Yep.
And there was a big, tall statey in a gray shirt and a shorter guy. And I don't think the guy was short. I just think the other guy was really big. Actually, I know he was because they came up to me. He was a big dude, like probably 6'6", you know, and a white shirt. And the big guy had the cuffs, and the shorter guy had the paper. And I never turned back around. I peeked, and then I just looked straight ahead. And
maybe they're not for me.
I just looked ahead, and all of a sudden, like, Mr. Robinson? And I'm like, yeah. Like, what you got going on? And I'm like, man, I said, honestly, I have no clue. I really don't. And I started telling him, I said, man, you know, been into my sobriety for like a month. I'm a recovering heroin addict that messed up a lot of parts of my life. And this is my first step. This is literally the first. I'm just trying to get my license back. So I don't know, but I'm sure there's something. But I don't. He goes, says here, you know, you didn't show up for a court appearance. You know, it's $250 to pay off the warrant. There's a warrant for your arrest. I'm like, yeah, man. I have $250, but he says, is there anyone in town that you can call to run up there and pay this off, and we'll just watch it clear in the system? And so I'm like, well, I can try. So my dad drove truck, so he wasn't around. My mom worked at a place where she was pretty tough to get a hold of. It was a whole process to get a hold of her. So I called my brother. I'm like, he answers, and I'm like, hey, man, tell him what's going on. And he's like, dude, I can go up there, but it's going to be about an hour. I'm getting ready to walk into a meeting. I said, well, I don't think they're going to give me an hour, but will you, like, let mom or dad or someone know that I'm going to probably be going to jail? They got a warrant for my arrest. And then I looked up at him. I said, are you guys going to take me to the Franklin County? Or are you going to take me back to my town? And he's like, well, just tell him you'll text him or call him back. I said, well, man, if you don't hear, I said, I'll call you back. If you don't hear from me, just let someone know that I'm either going to be in Franklin or I'm going to be back home, but I'm going to be in jail at one of those two places. And my brother's like, man, that sucks, dude. I'm sorry you're dealing with that, but we'll get you out of there. Just, it's all good, man. You just got to deal with it. I said, I know, man. I'll talk to you later.
What a good big brother.
So I'm like, yeah, man. I said, I don't have anybody to be able to get up there, you know.
It's all right, man. I know it's...
So this is the part where it's divine, man.
Yeah.
No other explanation for it, because I had been arrested before.
And you should have went to jail this time.
Going to jail sucks, you know. I was never built for that, like, mentally. I just like to do my thing, you know. But it had happened, and I dealt with it, and it was done. This lieutenant that was in charge, that had the paper and stuff, he's like, starts telling me that his little brother is battling addiction, and they can't seem to get him on the right track. and tells me, I've talked to a lot of people and heard a lot of bull crap. You've looked me in my face and you've talked to me honestly this entire conversation. And I think it's amazing that you're putting your life back together. And if you give me your word when you walk out this door that you're going straight up to City Hall when you get back to your town and you're going to go up there and pay this warrant off and see the judge, I don't see any reason to place you under arrest today.
Wow.
And he hugged me. This cop.
Wow.
And I'm like, I don't know what I'm going there right now.
Yeah.
I'm not going to stop to take a leak. I'm heading there right now. And you know, my mom later, when I was talking to her about it, she's like, you know, he got on the computer within a few hours to see if that warrant was gone. And he seen that it was.
Right.
And to me, when I walked out that door, not in handcuffs, and got back in the car with my friend to head back towards town, I hadn't got the step that I had went to get taken care of, but I had notched one item off the list, and it was so impactful to me, man. It was just so, I don't know it was divine, man. What are the odds in the state of Ohio that the officer in charge of placing me under arrest for an active warrant would have a little brother in the same situation that I'm in? So he had empathy for the situation, but he also had a reality that his brother was not hitting it head on, and that he felt that he was talking to someone that was speaking honestly to him, and he gave me a chance. And I hope that him giving me that chance gave him confidence in his judgment of character, and down the road maybe gave another person the same opportunity.
Well, I was thinking, you know, you may have inadvertently also been a great testimony to the police officer's brother. You know, you don't know. He very well could have talked like, look, I met this guy who's going through the same thing you're going through, and he's turning his whole life around, and he was willing to go to jail in the moment, whatever it took. And, you know, you very well could have been the inspiration for somebody else's recovery, and you don't even know it. It reminds me of, you know, how I love to do Bible verses, but Romans 8:28, you know, many are familiar with it. It says, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. So basically, you know, God can use any situation that's horrible and turn it into using it for good. And this podcast is a perfect example. You know, we're going to use our stories for the good and hopefully bring people to Christ through our testimonies. And
my prayers are that at least one person hears it, that can relate to it, that either can be that stepping stone for someone that they know that's currently in it, or someone comes across it that's in active addiction, and understand in your darkest moment, all you have to do is open up your heart and
give it all to God.
God will guide you.
Yeah.
And I didn't have the foresight to understand what was happening to me as it was happening to me. I never heard it put that way. But in hindsight, I believe with all my heart that the divine intervention was a complete and masterful display of love towards me to help me. My wife tells me, she's like, I hear stories that you say and that you lived. And I'm so thankful that you were alive for us to meet. and be together. And she means it sincerely. And and sometimes, like, I speak of the things that I do, and when I don't dislike saying them out loud. I never want to glorify it, because sometimes it can be, oh, buddies sitting around reminiscing on how stupid you were. But my stupid became a reality that about took my life and did take the lives of a lot of people that I care about. One of my best friends passed away from a drug overdose years after I was sober, like probably 5 or 6 years into my sobriety. And I never reconnected with him after my sobriety, because I knew he wasn't following that path. That was the one
that when you witnessed the stranger die, you were at his house. Was that correct?
It wasn't technically his house, but it was.
That was the last time you saw him.
Yeah.
Though.
Yep.
And that's unfortunate, that because I know you came to that realization later, like, man, the thing that brought me out of my addiction, that was the last time I saw one of my best friends.
Yeah, and
he ended up taking his life, unfortunately.
Yeah, and he was a good dude. You know, a lot of people had a lot of issues with the way he was getting by in those last years or whatever, but I knew him before all that, and he was a good dude. And I've told you the story. You know, I would come out to my truck, and there'd be like a little note on like whatever was available in his vehicle, and it'd be underneath like my windshield wiper. He'd just recognize. I used to have these like monster stickers like on the back of my window of my little pickup truck that I had. Very noticeable. If you knew it was mine, then that's what you looked for. There's a lot of trucks that looked like it, but they didn't have the monster stickers on the back of it. So, and it'd come out and it'd say, "Hey man, so proud of you. I would never jeopardize your sobriety. We're going to get there and it'll be like it used to be. I love you, brother." Just little notes of encouragement. And it happened a handful of times over the 5 years that I was in sobriety and he was still here. And now I know, like, one of them little notes I'm never going to pop up on one of them little notes ever again. And it saddens me that he lost that battle, because he was a great dude. Yeah. You know, he made a lot of mistakes. We all did. And he got judged for his by people, maybe fairly in some of the things, but I'll never lose sight of who he was at the core. And he was a guy that was older than me, that when I lived by myself and my little bachelor pad was a complete dump, and he would come over and like, "Dude, just because you're a dude doesn't mean you got to be disgusting." You know, he'd come over and we'd just like turn music on at my house, and he'd spend hours over there with me, like dusting the entertainment center, cleaning windows, washing dishes, you know, like cleaning. It was like, tell me, dude, I was brought up that way, by the way. It's not that I didn't have that type of guidance, but to have it from someone outside the box in the moments when I was young and stupid and just would come in and like take my clothes off and not, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think anyone can dispute that young dudes right out of high school are disgusting pigs when it comes to most of them. There's some that, you know, that maybe like a little bit of like completely, he wasn't that way. He was just like, anytime I'd go to his house, he'd be like, music was going, the vacuum was going. He would always be cleaning. He'd always be doing something. Every time I'd go to his house, he was doing something productive, and it kind of rubbed off, you know, like we can all get tired in our day-to-day lives and get lazy, and you're allowed to have a free pass here and there, but, you know, I miss him, and I often think of if he would have ever found his way out, what would our lives together be like now, as far as like our friendship goes, and the picnics or, you know, cookouts or campground, or, you know, like he was, man, we used to go running in the creeks with his 4x4, you know, like he was such a good dude, man. And
I kind of want to talk to that real quick, you know, how your best friend lost his life. You know, the goal is, if somebody's in active addiction listening to this, I do want to talk about giving your life to Christ. In the book of Romans, chapter 10, verse 9, it says, if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord, and you believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. And if you're listening and you want to do that, just pray, Lord, I confess that you're the Lord. I want you to Lord over my life, and I accept you into my heart. And I want to give it all to you, Lord. And I love you, Lord, and I believe God raised you from the dead, and I want to give my life to you. Just pray that prayer, and you're going to have to give your life to the Lord, and that takes work, if especially if you're in active addiction. But I just wanted to talk to that real quick and offer that to anybody that wants to change their life around. There is hope and deliverance through Christ Jesus. So just wanted to say
amen to that, brother.
Real quick.
I spoke to you, when I made the choice to open my heart to God. My feet got lighter. The pain that just day-to-day pains of aging and what I do for a living and everything, the burden just lessened. And it's such a beautiful thing to do, man.
Amen.
And I hope that through the people that we talk to, and this is episode 1.
Right.
And I know it's probably going to be a 2-parter. You're probably going to be hearing the end of this because like I said, I'm a long-winded speaker, but I hope you heard it. I hope you didn't just listen. I want people to understand that I had given up hope. I literally looked in a mirror one night, looked down on the dresser, and here's this platter tray with syringes and a burnt spoon and a bag of drugs. And I looked at it, and I looked at myself. I looked at my reflection. And I said, dude, you've met this. This is what you've became.
Yeah.
And it is too late. You better just start accepting that you are just a piece of crap.
And that's the voice of the devil right there. And anybody, if your inner voice tells you you're a lost cause, there's no coming out of this, that is the voice of the enemy. And we're here to tell you there is deliverance through Christ Jesus. So
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you, and I know that and you didn't tell me that you was going to have these verses on hand before, but I will say very well placed and so accurate, man. It really felt good to hear that, because it's like we've talked about it, so I'm glad you did your research, and it's like, man, this is it.
Are we about to wrap up?
Yeah, man. So, thanks, brother. It's been cool getting this first one off my chest.
It was a great testimony, man. We got to play this epic rock music.
Absolutely.
Testimony Table Podcast, episode 1 in the books.
Thank everyone that comes across this for giving it the time. If you've reached it this far, you're a very dedicated soul, and I appreciate it.
Yeah. God bless you all.
God bless you. Later.